anybody have any educated guesses, hypotheses as to, I mean, what happens in the winter time out here? This freezes, does it freeze solid, or is there open water?
There's open water over there.
During winter?
Mm-hmm.
So maybe the fish are finding pockets of open water where they can survive.
But you said they can freeze and be fine, right?
They also keep water open by swimming around in it in a tight mass.
Mm-hmm. That's right. And Joe's referring to people describe how these fish will live in association with muskrats. If you guys spend time out duck hunting, you'll see muskrat push-ups. And the fish will help congregate at a breathing hole that the muskrat forms in this little mound of vegetation. And their movement, their thrashing around, will help keep that water liquid and free from ice. So there's kind of an association. Do muskrat eat blackfish? I didn't know. I actually had a trap once that either someone vandalized my trap or the muskrat went inside and died, and it was wedged in the trap. So I'm not sure. I'm almost thinking someone was playing a practical joke on me. It was kind of hard to imagine that muskrat shoving its way into one of these minnow traps. So these are, we call them minnow traps because in the lower 48 they use them to trap bait minnows, and they're illegal to use in Alaska except for research. You have to go through a lot of hoops and apply for a special fish and game permit from the permitting office in Juneau for research only.
Except they sell them at B&J.
They sell them at B&J.
Yeah. Oh well.
Let me get out our pros.
Not delicacy, Ben.
Oh, yeah, does anybody have a dog?
I'm taking
this out there. I want it.
I'll have it.
I'll throw it in the
The
dog.
lab.
Sure. Go ahead and dump them in. We're going to look at them a little more. Thank you. I apologize. I forgot that you brought us more fish. Feel free to pick them up and look at them. Hold them in your hand. Take a photo. They're really amazing fish. I wonder how many we have in there.
Really? As we cook?
All the others homemade camp stove. Right,
So they were just
like a bunch of butter and a tin foil.
it just tasted like a fish, or?
Yeah.
We have Dr. Von Hippel graciously let me borrow probes from his lab. These cost thousands of dollars. This one is oxygen, measures dissolved oxygen, and this one is a combination probe that measures a variety of things including pH, temperature, salinity, and conductivity. So that's kind of cool, and it has a nice long cord for deep water lake situations. If I can untangle my...
I think you grabbed like the biggest one out of there.
Do you have their pores and pores on the face,
Yeah, I didn't notice that. It was cool.
And these probes, we have to calibrate them after about every other second time used, and then they stay in a very damp sheath that keeps them... You never dip these probes in deionized water or it ruins them, so it's kind of an interesting... These are fairly new that the Stickleback Lab acquired.
Speaking of probe, Connor.
I didn't mean to hand that to you. And the Fort Rich hatchery that you guys toured last week has some of these probes too, and they're constantly monitoring pH, temperature, dissolved oxygen. They have to take regular readings of them. So, okay.
Do they not like the sun? They're staying in like the shade mostly.
You know what? Those fish, what they do is, I discovered this from holding them in the lab a couple summers. They seek out vegetation, and I boil up sphagnum moss and put it in the bottom of the tank, and they stay under cover at all times. And it's really difficult. I trapped my first young of the year blackfish out here this summer, but it's really difficult finding them because they dive down into the substrate. We believe, we've been told that native people in some interior villages will go out in wintertime and harvest them by digging them out of the mud, and they find them encased in mucus cocoons. They produce a lot of mucus, especially in the wintertime, like pike are a very mucusy fish. We think that the mucus has something to do with their freeze tolerance or freeze avoidance strategies, but there's something about burrowing into substrate. So if you keep them in an aquarium, room temperature is kind of too warm for them. 80 degrees Fahrenheit is lethal. They prefer maybe 50 to 60 degrees, but if you keep them in a tank and you provide substrate, they just stay under cover the entire time. You never see them. And I was wondering if they're nocturnal feeders. I study their diet, what they feed on a year-round basis, and they would disappear in the summertime, and they appear to be nocturnal feeders at least in the summer, and I'm not sure about the winter, but their survival strategies are really interesting. So it's really easy to trap them with minnow traps.
Did you put anything in the traps?
No, some people do.
We have
other fellow students who have trapped with baited traps, but we never bait our traps. The stickleback people who use them never use bait. And I've tried, and it hasn't improved my catch at all. So it's a lot easier to use them unbaited. People like to use dog food if you do use bait, or crackers, or fish eggs, or a lot of different foods, but we don't. It's kind of cool the way their behavior, the way that they clump together. They're known for being able to live in tundra ponds in interior Alaska. So really small area, really high densities of fish, low oxygen, fairly thermal tolerant, depending on as long as it's below 80. So, and winter, who knows? You can get winter kill die-off of blackfish. People report seeing dead blackfish in springtime. So there is something there where there's a certain amount of oxygen or whatever, open water or something. I don't know, but it's pretty amazing. My guess is, so this past winter when I trapped them over a full 12-month period, they disappeared for 6 weeks, about January to February. I didn't trap any. And it was in a wetlands pond similar to this site here, and I think that they had burrowed into substrate to escape the ice and the cold temperatures, and then they reappeared. People, there's a fish forum online, and I was leaving blogs describing this, and they said, oh no, they're all dead, that's called winter kill. They said fish can't survive by burrowing into mud substrate, but these fish survive just fine, so I think that's a strategy that they use. But, well, do I have a couple brave volunteers to accompany me? And let's see, let me grab my rain notebook, and we'll write down the parameters and bring that data back, and
You could fry some up for dinner.
feel free to.
You know you want to.
If you want to, here's what the permit looks like that we got just for you guys for this class. It's kind of interesting to see what Fish and Game, what information they require. Bob and Juno, he's been very kind to us. And then on this sheet, I printed out of the Mecklenburg textbook that we have a copy of in the lab. There's a data sheet on the blackfish. And also, if you look on Fish and Game website, they have an Alaska Notebook series, and they have an excellent write-up by Robert Armstrong. He did a really good summary on blackfish. Take me right in the
Big wig at your office, yeah. Hatchery manager or contact?
Feel free to pass that off to somebody if you don't want to go back out.
Oh, I don't mind.
Okay, thank you. So go ahead and